From ancient times to the 20th century, humanity has sought ways to confront adversity, power, and suffering. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and philosopher, is thousands of miles and centuries away from Nelson Mandela, the icon of resistance in South Africa. Yet they both share something in common: Stoicism, that philosophy that teaches us to remain calm in the midst of chaos and injustice. Marcus Aurelius states, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." In other words, the way you manage your thoughts and emotions defines your destiny. But how does someone who runs the most powerful empire in history or someone who spends 27 years in prison apply these principles? How does he stand firm in the face of betrayal, loss, oppression? What few know is that these historical leaders not only survived these circumstances, but used them to transform themselves and the world around them. And while Stoicism seems like a philosophy of serenity and peace, the reality is much harsher. There are profound lessons here, yes, but also controversial decisions that push them to the edge. Did Marcus Aurelius allow his philosophy to make him weak in the face of the collapse of Rome? Was Mandela too quick to forgive his oppressors? In this video, you'll discover how these men took Stoic principles and turned them into powerful weapons in their fight for justice, power, and ultimately, their legacy. And what I reveal today may shake your beliefs about power, justice, and human resilience. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor. Marcus Aurelius, known as the last of the 5 good emperors, leads the Roman Empire during one of its most turbulent times. But behind the armor and the war decisions lies a deeply philosophical man, someone who faces the temptations of absolute power with stoic serenity. What's incredible is how, as the most powerful man in the world, he chooses moderation and self-control rather than falling prey to the corruption that surrounds him. In his Meditations, a private journal that he never intends to publish, Marcus Aurelius writes to himself, "Do not act as though you have 10,000 years to waste. Death is nipping at your heels. While you live, while you can, be a good person." These words not only reveal his internal struggle, but also his commitment to a life of virtue, even under the most difficult circumstances. During his reign, he faces wars on the empire's borders, internal revolts, and a devastating epidemic that decimates its population. Despite these adversities, Marcus Aurelius never allows power to consume him. Stoicism, for him, is more than a philosophy, it is a way of life that allows him to endure trials that would break any other leader. What many do not know is that, in the midst of one of the deadliest pandemics of antiquity, the Antonine Plague, Marcus Aurelius faces one of his most difficult trials. Millions die, the empire is shaken, and yet he stands firm, applying the Stoic principle of acceptance. He writes, "Accept without grumbling what fate has given you, for what happens to us has been determined by nature, which has created us." Here a great contradiction arises. While Marcus Aurelius preaches humility and moderation, he lives surrounded by luxury and comfort. How is it possible for a man who professes detachment from worldly pleasures to live in such opulence? This raises doubts about the authenticity of his stoicism. Some see him as a master of self-restraint, while others criticize him for not giving up the riches his power grants him. Is he contradicting himself, or is he simply trapped by the circumstances of his time? Marcus Aurelius's moral dilemma haunts him to the end of his days. While his contemporaries indulge in excess, he remains aloof, maintaining a stance of introspection and detachment. But does he really manage to separate his inner life from the expectations that surround him? Many historians point out that his philosophical approach isolates him from reality, leading him to make decisions that could have weakened Rome at critical moments. In his final moments, Marcus Aurelius faces mortality, not only his own, but also that of the empire he has dedicated his life to protecting. His son, Commodus, who succeeds him on the throne, is known to be the opposite of his father, violent, capricious, and corrupt. How is it that a man so devoted to Stoicism fails to pass on these values to his own son? This is one of the greatest criticisms of Marcus Aurelius, his failure to prepare Rome for the future. Herein lies the controversy: is Marcus Aurelius a philosophical hero or a leader whose idealistic ideas undermine the empire he was meant to protect? Some historians argue that his devotion to Stoicism made him inflexible, unable to adapt to the pragmatic needs of his time. His legacy remains a matter of debate, but one thing is clear: Marcus Aurelius, for all his contradictions, represents the noblest and most tragic attempt to live by Stoic principles while carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Winston Churchill, the British Bulldog and Stoicism. Winston Churchill, known for his iron will and iconic leadership during World War II, stands as a controversial and divisive figure in history. His nickname, the British Bulldog, resonates not only for his unwavering determination, but also for his ability to weather adversity with an unflappable attitude. What many don't know is that Churchill, despite his explosive temper and reputation as a heavy drinker, embodies many of the tenets of Stoicism, though he never admits it publicly. At his core, Churchill embraces the idea that no matter how dire the circumstances, the only thing he can truly control is his mind and his attitude. In the midst of German bombing raids on London, as the city burns under the Blitz, Churchill utters one of his most famous lines: "If you're walking through hell, keep walking." Stoic advice at its core, reflecting Churchill's ability to maintain composure in the midst of chaos. But, this is where Churchill's story becomes darker and more controversial. His Stoic attitude leads him to make cold, calculated decisions, which some call ruthless. A shocking example occurs during the German attacks on Coventry. British intelligence discovers that the Nazis are planning a devastating bombing raid on the city. Evacuation is considered, but Churchill decides not to warn the citizens. His reasoning is brutal: if Coventry is evacuated, the Germans will discover that the United Kingdom has cracked their Enigma code, compromising military intelligence crucial to the rest of the war. So, Coventry is exposed, and more than 500 people lose their lives. Stoicism or extreme coldness? This is the dilemma. Churchill stands by his decision, convinced that Coventry's sacrifice saves thousands of lives later. But that is a justification that some do not accept. Behind his Stoic facade, the question arises: how much weight can one man bear before his morally ambiguous decisions consume him? Is the sacrifice of a few for the good of the many proof of his relentless resolve, or a reflection of a mind hardened by war and power? Churchill personifies the dark side of Stoicism, the ability to endure suffering with an impenetrable mask, but at the cost of making decisions that, in retrospect, might seem morally questionable. His legacy is complex. While to some he is a hero who saved Europe from fascism, to others, he is a leader who often acts with a harshness that borders on callousness. History judges Churchill from both sides. Stoicism gives him the strength to lead a nation through its darkest moments, but it also pushes him into decisions that leave deep scars. In the end, his legacy remains a reminder that even the most stoic leaders face moral dilemmas that will mark them forever. Nelson Mandela, resilience in suffering. Nelson Mandela, the icon of resistance against apartheid, faces 27 years in prison on Robben Island. Many cannot endure a week in a cell, but Mandela endures almost 3 decades, without losing his humanity or his vision of a free South Africa. Mandela finds in the solitude of his cell an opportunity to strengthen his mind. It is said that in his years in prison, he resorts to reading philosophical texts, including Stoic principles, although he does not call them that directly. Echoes of Stoicism are reflected in his famous quote, "I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul." This mentality helps him stay focused, not letting hatred and despair consume him. Despite the injustices he suffers, Mandela opts for non-violence and reconciliation, decisions that put him in a controversial position. His more radical followers accuse him of being too soft, of giving in too much to the white regime. At its core, his approach is based on an essential Stoic principle: self-discipline and control over his own emotions. Those who share his prison tell how Mandela, even in the darkest moments, remains calm. He shows no signs of revenge, but a Stoic serenity that inspires others. Stoicism, for Mandela, does not mean passivity, but the ability to maintain one's integrity in the face of extreme suffering. At his trial, before being sentenced to life imprisonment, Mandela declares, "I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. My dearest ideal is that of a free and democratic society in which all people live together in harmony and with equal opportunity." There is a clear connection here with Stoicism, the commitment to a higher ideal, even at the cost of one's own freedom. Physical and psychological suffering does not break Mandela. Like a true Stoic, he accepts the circumstances he cannot control, but refuses to be defined by them. Rather than succumb to despair, Mandela works on his own personal improvement, educating himself and other prisoners. His inner strength becomes a light to those around him. Outside in South Africa, violence escalates, racial tensions reach boiling point. Many demand a violent response to oppression, but Mandela, from his cell, preaches the opposite. This stance brings him harsh criticism, even from those who support him. Yet his Stoic approach keeps him steadfast in his belief that peace and reconciliation are the only sustainable paths to freedom. When he finally leaves prison, he does so a transformed man, but unwavering in his principles. Mandela uses his experience and Stoic mindset to guide South Africa toward a peaceful transition from apartheid to democracy. But controversy persists. Some criticize him for not being tough enough on those responsible for oppression. Is his Stoic approach to forgiveness and reconciliation a sign of strength or a missed opportunity to deliver full justice? What Mandela demonstrates is that Stoicism, in its purest form, is not only a philosophy of acceptance, but also a source of moral power and leadership. Although many question his decisions, there is no denying that Mandela uses his inner control and resilience to change the destiny of a nation. The dark side of Stoicism, lessons from controversial figures. Stoicism, at its core, is a philosophy of virtue, self-discipline, and emotional control. However, when stripped of its ethics, it can become a dangerous tool in the hands of unscrupulous leaders. Stoic calm, rather than a virtue, becomes a veil to hide sinister ambitions or cruel decisions. Vladimir Putin, a leader known for his coldness and calculated strategy, often displays an unflappable calm in the face of devastating decisions. His ability to remain unmoved in the face of crises may seem like an application of Stoicism. But this calm does not arise from a desire for virtue or self-control, but from a need to exercise absolute power. Putin makes decisions that affect millions, and he does so with an apparent indifference to human suffering. The controversy intensifies when some interpret his Stoicism as strength, while others see it as a total disconnect from morality. Is this Stoicism or simply a disdain for life and liberty? The line between virtue and abuse of power becomes dangerously thin. Donald Trump, another leader who polarizes opinions, displays a Stoic indifference to criticism and scandal. His ability to withstand public scrutiny without showing weakness may seem admirable to some, but his behavior raises questions. Is it genuine Stoicism or a manifestation of narcissism and arrogance? Trump faces controversy with a "nothing affects me" attitude, but this apparent strength turns into insensitivity to the consequences of his actions. During his term, many of his followers see him as a strong and unwavering leader, while others criticize him for his lack of empathy and responsibility. Trump applies a distorted version of Stoicism, where emotional coldness is mistaken for leadership, but his decisions and social impact reveal a deep disconnect with the ethical principles that underpin true Stoicism. Stoicism, in the wrong hands, becomes a tool to justify inaction in the face of injustice or ruthless control. Leaders like Bashar al-Assad or Kim Jong-un also exhibit an outward calm in the face of devastating decisions for their people. This misinterpreted stoicism becomes a justification for immoral acts under the guise of mental strength. Here, stoicism ceases to be a philosophy of life and becomes a mechanism of control and oppression. The principles of self-control and emotional detachment, so valued by ancient philosophers, are distorted to justify cruelty. This shows how a philosophy that seeks virtue can be used for evil when applied without compassion or morality. True stoicism is not insensitivity, it is not contempt for the suffering of others. But in the hands of leaders like these, stoicism becomes a mask, a tool to dehumanize and consolidate power. So when we see these characters display unwavering calm in the face of pain and devastation, we must ask, is it stoicism or simply the coldness of absolute power? Modern impact. Stoicism, a philosophy born in ancient Greece, transcends time and continues to influence the lives of millions of people. In today's world, where crises seem endless and uncertainty rules, Stoic principles find renewed relevance. Leaders and everyday people alike apply these values to navigate the challenges of modern life. Take, for example, the core concept of control. The Stoics teach that the key to a peaceful life lies in accepting what cannot be changed and focusing on what can be changed. In modern life, this means letting go of obsessing over external factors, such as the global economy or the opinions of others, and focusing on one's own response to situations. Someone may lose their job, suffer a personal loss, or face a pandemic, but the Stoic approach is to stay calm, control emotional reaction, and move forward with purpose. In the realm of social justice, Stoicism offers a powerful perspective. Historical figures like Nelson Mandela not only resisted injustice, but also faced it with dignity. The idea of acting in harmony with human nature resonates with those who fight for equality and human rights. It is not just about resisting, but resisting with integrity, fighting for change without losing sight of humanity and empathy. The ability to maintain serenity while fighting oppression becomes an act of personal revolution. In politics, where power and corruption often walk hand in hand, Stoicism acts as a reminder that virtue must guide actions. Contemporary leaders face difficult decisions, from climate change to migration crises, and those who hold to Stoic principles prioritize the common good over personal gain. They apply justice, not as an abstract idea, but as a daily practice. Thus, Stoicism becomes an ethical compass in a world that often seems to lose its way. In personal life, Stoicism invites one to adopt a mindset of gratitude and humility. Instead of constantly seeking more, those who apply these principles learn to appreciate what they have. In a world of constant comparisons and insatiable desires, this mindset provides a rare calm. Relationships also benefit from Stoicism, as it fosters empathy, understanding, and patience. Maintaining serenity in the midst of conflict, practicing self-control, and remembering that everyone faces their own struggles are pillars of healthy relationships. Finally, Stoicism impacts mental health in a profound way. In a time where anxiety and depression are prevalent, Stoic principles offer tools for emotional resilience. The practice of meditation on mortality, known as memento mori, does not seek to depress, but to liberate. By accepting the inevitable nature of death, one finds a greater appreciation for life. Premeditatio malorum, or anticipation of future problems, prepares the mind for any eventuality, reducing the impact of stress and anxiety when those problems arise. Today, Stoic philosophy no longer belongs only to ancient philosophers or Roman emperors. It has become an accessible tool for anyone seeking to find meaning, balance, and strength in a world filled with uncertainty. From Marcus Aurelius to Nelson Mandela, Stoicism has proven to be a timeless guide to living with virtue and dignity, no matter the circumstances. We've taken a fascinating journey through history and Stoicism, discovering how figures like Marcus Aurelius, Winston Churchill, and Nelson Mandela applied these principles to face monumental challenges. From the greatness of Rome to the intense struggles in South Africa, Stoicism has served as a moral compass amidst relentless storms. Each of these leaders, with their decisions and philosophies, offers us a valuable lesson about the power of the mind in building a meaningful life. Stoicism, far from being a simple theory, becomes a tool to face adversities, both personal and global. But it's also crucial to remember that Stoicism, like any powerful tool, can be misinterpreted. The key lies in applying its principles with integrity and in pursuit of a greater good, rather than using them to justify questionable actions. So, as you consider Stoicism in your own life, focus on how it can help you handle your challenges with wisdom and strength. Ask yourself, how can I use these principles to grow and contribute positively to the world around me? If this video has inspired you, feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Your perspective may open new doors for others seeking balance and strength in their lives. And if you want to continue exploring deep and life-changing topics, subscribe and join us on this journey of discovery. If you enjoyed our video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Leave us your comments and share your experiences with us so YouTube knows that these types of videos help people like you and we can continue creating more similar videos in the future. See you in our next video.